Hello and welcome to another episode 97 with Alex, who is a founder of CEO Female Entrepreneur. A very crucial topic, I'm sure you will agree. In this episode, we really delve into what it actually takes. And I think this is a really important question because so often things can be kind of glossed over, like just do this and it will be fine. And it's almost like saying, just build a house, just put the bricks together. And I know essentially that that's what it is, but there is so much more to it than that. And interview 98 is a really powerful one to follow that because it's with Ingrid, who has been a past client too. And we titled this episode Business and Grief. And you may have met Ingrid before because she was one of my earlier guests, I think episode 27, if I'm remembering correctly. Ingrid recently, at the time of recording, lost her mum, and her family, and she is originally from Australia, and making those moves of looking after small children, but also caring for a parent, also caring for yourself, and going through that grief is quite something. And she approached me about talking about it because it's a really, really important topic. And even though it's a hard listen at times, I think it's so crucial because many of us are going through lots of experiences behind the scenes, and certainly since COVID. And yeah, I feel that we can't just put on a smiley face sometimes, or a positive mental attitude is not just enough, because sometimes real life really shows us all of the things. So do check that episode out, especially if you're going through some stuff. I know that you'll get lots of empathy from both of us. Interview 99 is with Kathleen Erdly, who is the founder of Future Retail Consulting. Another great one if you're thinking about products and how to bring them to market and how to know what to do. I love it when people really unpick the behind the scenes and they really give it to you and are so generous and so candid with the information that they have. So that's definitely one to listen to in full if you really want to boost your sales or welcome new customers. And interview 100, I know, can you believe it, is with Kathleen, who is the founder of Triple Passport. I love following Kathleen online because she really spikes that interest of traveling, and she shares so much, from points, from upgrading to business class, to working nomadically, and to traveling with kids and getting decent discounted flights. There are so many gems in here. We also talk about money, which I think is very important to discuss. And she has lots of really insightful opinions and thoughts on this. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you haven't been over to my freebies house, do go over. There's some really great stuff in there. nikkiraby.com/freebies. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.
I love your story. I really would like to see you back then. Maybe going with the fingers, right? That would be a good picture to see.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And because but then of course, like, that had a detrimental effect with my parents because they were a bit like, oh my goodness, where's the sweet child gone, who was very kind of conformist and predictable, and I just became a bit of a fireball. But equally, like, it was 2 years of my life that I think when I left home at 18, my mum was like, yeah, I'm ready for this moment now. But, you know, maybe it was down to teenage angst or whatever, but it did give me those skills of, like, you can reinvent yourself as and when you want, and you don't necessarily have to wait for somebody else's permission.
Life here was a really positive thing. Not to say coming back wasn't hard, because it was very challenging, but also to get back into a rhythm where I felt more myself here. I felt, because this is, you know, London is where I had my babies. It's where I started my business. It's very much Ingrid now. So it felt very comforting to come back into this life and to take baby steps into, you know, the world as it is now after my mum's left. So I think having that has been very comforting for me as well.
Yeah. And what has that looked like on a day-to-day basis? Have there been... Because I guess the to-do list never stops. And when you run your own business and you have children and you have responsibilities and things need to get paid and sorted and life carries on, what's helped you to have those moments of kind of grounding for you, or those tools that you've sort of tapped into, I guess, when you were perhaps not necessarily feeling on top form, or today isn't the best day?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll be honest and say there have been so many days when I've gotten up and just felt the struggle of the grief. And I think that's one of my tools, has been to just take one day at a time. And this is my mantra every day, that I get up in the morning and I think about, how am I feeling today, in terms of missing mum and in terms of coping with the feelings and just the heaviness that comes with grieving. And that's something I do for myself every morning before I start mumming and before I start working or whatever it is I am that day. I just take a few minutes and ask myself, how am I today? How much emotionally can I handle, and make an assessment on that. And that has been something really helpful for me that I started doing when I was in Australia. This is something I started because there are some days when I would wake up and think, actually, no, I can't do anything but the bare essentials today. And
I didn't stick with my original website, is all I'm going to say.
And also, you don't know how your customers are going to react. You don't necessarily know if they're going to react the way you expect. You may end up having a slightly different customer. You may well want to pivot. And if you've backed yourself into a corner financially, overcommitted, then you can't pivot. And so I think it's really important to just bear that in mind and not to jump in. And it is difficult. Branding something that, if you're going for a luxury product, then it's very hard to do that without really great branding right from the get-go. But otherwise, if you can get away with the sort of not cheap branding, but the basics of branding to get you started, rather than investing the thousands and thousands in a much larger program, then again, it's all about giving yourself time to pivot. And you're actually much better off spending the money going overseas to meet the factory that's going to be making your products and building a relationship with them than you are, for example, to do a big flashy press launch because you think that's what you're going to need. But it goes back to, as you said, the sort of deeply unsexy stuff is often what you need to get going.
How did you start to monetize things? Like, what were your rules? Again, I know so many women really struggle with asking for money, or everybody sort of stays in the free zone for so long before they actually enter the next zone of being paid their worth, or for their work, or their time, effort, all of that sort of stuff. How did that process work for you?
So it's it's a great conversation. I love talking about women and money and personal finance and paying off debt, because that was a huge part of my story. I first of all am in a really lucky position where I do have a bit of a cushion. So it means I can be really choosy of what I monetize. And so really what, in my mind and how I've approached this, is that I'm going for really big wins. I'm not worried about, I could do a sponsored post for £100 for any sort of product. I mean, that makes it sound like I can get any job. I would be very, very lucky to get that job. But with, that's approximately what a 10,000 following gets, is, your reach approximately gets £100 for an ad. But that's not what, and if you need £100, like, you should go for it. You should get it, and your audience will understand. But I'm looking just at a much bigger picture.
Yes.
of it's not the nickel and diming of here. It's, okay, how am I going to work with the Maine Bureau of Tourism and do a huge campaign for them? And yes, you need to do the legwork and do, I need to work on my content. I work on my craft, as they say. And I need things, and you don't start at the top. So it's been an interesting mix. I've never struggled to ask for money. Maybe it's because I'm American. It's also I've been working since I was 10. Like,
I love it.
I know. I think I negotiated my first pay rise when I was 11.
Good. You must, because your rates go up at that point for sure.
Yeah, from 10 to 11, definitely. I went from $2 to $2.50 an hour.
Good.
For babysitting. Mother's helper. I basically I would go to a supermarket or with a mom with 2 kids and just stop the kids from pulling everything off the shelves. Wow. So basically my life now.
Yeah.
But